All right, this is Sports for Real with Coach Hall. Been a few days since I've been on, but like I said, I've been busy lately. Got some things I need to take care of. But I got some heavy content coming down the pipe. Doing a little on location shooting today. A lot going on in the sports world. And starting tomorrow, you have the high school football camps opening up here in Florida. So I got on my old throwback jersey. Um, like working with those guys, but I don't want to get too far into that, but I'm representing the old school I used to work with. A lot going on today. As I talk, I'm going to put in the background information, try to put some pictures in the background on the things I'm going to be talking about today. Like I said, I got a few things I need to cover, but we saw the opening ceremony to the Olympics take place the other day, and a lot of people are excited about what they saw, and I am one of those. But let me get it together here real quick. And I'm going to share my screen. And then trying to get it all together here. Give me a minute. All right. All right. I should be sharing my screen. And what you see there in the background is a picture of the opening ceremonies from the Eiffel Tower. And it was a very, very pretty picture there. If you look at the Eiffel Tower in the background, they have fireworks and you got the Olympic symbols there. And if you look in the aisleways there, is in the shape of the Eiffel Tower. Very, very interesting ceremony. And what made the ceremony interesting is that they tied a whole lot of social issues into it. And I get to that in a second. During the program, you saw a lot of history of France. France been around a long time, and they played a historical role into the development of the modern world. A lot of literature, a lot of architecture, um, governmental process. France has a big part into what took place. And what they did during the ceremony, they broke it up into segments and they call it different names like solidarity, elevate, those kind of things. But during the ceremony, they had this thing. Let me get to that first. Some participants that are controversial in some ways is first one is Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid plays for the 76ers in Philadelphia, but he's a native of Cameroon. Cameroon has I guess, an immigrant agreement with France, and a lot of immigrants go from Cameroon to France. So you can have dual citizenship with Cameroon and France as Embiid does. But by being here in America, he also has citizenship here in the United States. So Embiid had the opportunity to play either with Cameroon, the host nation France, or the United States. Well, as you might have guessed, always the front runner and everybody wants to win. They want to get in the best position to win instead of representing your home country. He chose to play with the United States. That's a slight to Cameroon, but it's also a slight to France. And the French weren't shy about letting Embiid know it. When he became visible in the country, they started jeering him because he chose to play with the U.S. instead of France. They were all wanting to see Embiid wear the host nation's colors, and he disappointed. He blew off the situation, basically saying he's just going to concentrate on what it is he has to do, which I can understand that. That's a nice political statement to make. But I think if it me, I'm going to represent where I came from. So I would skip France and I would play for Cameroon, even though you don't have a snowball chance of hell in winning a gold medal. Pretty much the same thing with France, but they probably do a little bit better than what Cameroon would do. But it comes down to what can you swallow? I mean, do you want to win the championship and not feel like this is not your country? Or do you just want to be on anybody's team and win a championship? Or do you want to just represent your natural country? Me, I'm going with my natural country. but that's just me. Um, but some other things about the the Olympics. We saw Simone Biles, her mother. She came on and she was interviewing in place of Simone because she wasn't able to attend the opening ceremonies because she wanted to focus on her competition, which begins today. So there you have Joel Embiid right there. And like I say, the French, they give him a hard time. Now, here's Simone Biles. Like I said, her mother represented her and they gave an extensive interview to her. And she talked about her daughter and how great it is to be back in the Olympics and so on and so forth. Then she took a shot at Snoop Dogg. So she met Snoop Dogg one time before, and he kind of like blew her off. It made for an awkward moment, but he deflected it real quick and tried to move on. But you know, a lot of people didn't miss that, and I don't know if he went behind the scenes to try to make that right, but there's not much he can do in a situation like that. Seems like they give too much airtime to that lady, but I understand under the circumstances. But Biles is considered the greatest gymnast. You know, in this day and age, everybody's talking about all the modern athletes. Any modern athlete now that's doing pretty good, they always say they're the greatest of all time. Well, we know that's all a bunch of crap, but that's respect that they give to their friends, and I can understand that. But are they really the greatest of all time? Well, this year, Biles comes in and she has a little bit of competition in the world with that Brazilian vaulter, Rebecca Andrade. No animosity, you know, between the two, but they are fierce competitors. And if anybody's going to knock her off some of the gold medals she's seeking, it's going to be Andrade. But my question is, why all of a sudden things are so much different now than they were in the last Olympics? If you recall the last Olympics, Biles, all of a sudden she come up with this condition, I think they call it the dropsies or something, um, where you couldn't make any mistakes. And yeah, it's a dangerous sport. You can't make any mistakes, all the flips and turns they do, because one mistake can mean paralysis or serious injury. So I understand that. So you have to be cognizant that your mind is fully focused. But she evidently doesn't have those problems anymore. But I never bought into that dropsy thing. And I think I mentioned this before. Um, Anytime that you get into something new and it excites you, it tends to take you off your focus. You take a person like Biles, who's grew up in this gymnastic stuff, and you take it real hard and you focus on that, and that's all you focus on. Everything else is blocked out. And then you bring in something new, and it changes the whole dynamic. In this particular case, I think she fell in love, and her focus was on that new love more so than what it was on gymnastics. So now that that's leveled off a little bit, we don't hear any other talk about this dropsy thing. And the other part of that is when they started calling her the greatest of all time was when she started to have issues with concentration. I think it was just a little bit too much pressure on her. And speaking of Olympic athletes, you saw that LeBron James, he was the flag bearer, the male flag bearer for the United States, along with Coco Gauff, the female tennis player. They were the flag bearers for the United States, and they had different uniforms. And it was noted by Steph Curry. He thought it was kind of funny to see LeBron dressed the way he was, a little bit different from everybody else. He wasn't making fun of him. He just thought he got a good chuckle out of that. But LeBron James, the subject, his son, as we know, signed in the summer after being drafted in the second round, I believe it was. He was the 55th pick. And he went to the Lakers on his dad's team. And it's starting to cause some problems in the Lakers camp because the players that were drafted with him in the summer league program are trying to get their games together, but they're not getting any attention. They might have been more highly rated than Bronny, but they're not getting the attention that he's getting, but they might be outperforming him on the court. So it's causing a problem inside the locker room because they feel like he's getting this preferential star treatment and he hasn't deserved it. Funny thing about the summer league is that it has shown the cracks that people thought he had all along. He's going to struggle, and until he develops into his game, it's going to continue to struggle. But the problem that the other players have is, would they have the same opportunity to develop their game? Well, we know the answer to that. Unless your dad is one of the greatest players that ever played and won multiple championships and generating billions across the globe, then you can answer that question for yourself. So his son was warranted on those grounds for a shot. But how long will the Lakers stick with this scenario of holding Bronny around until he develops, when the average player won't get anywhere near the time he's getting to develop their game? So the Mavericks also was one of the teams who were interested in drafting it, and it's been reported lately that they kind of glad that they didn't, because they see the little dissension developing in the Lakers locker room, and they don't want any part of that. They just come off a championship appearance, a couple pieces here and there, and develop what they got. They could very well be back in the championship next year and maybe win it this time. I doubt it, but it's a possibility. But Simone Biles, she's the greatest. She has a chance to put a stamp on that with this next Olympics coming up. So we'll see how that unfolds. All right, let's see what I got here. I got some stuff here behind this that I can't get to, which I'm trying to get to. All right, let me stop sharing for a second. And I'm going to go back to where I was. So again, this is Sports for Real. Been keeping up with what's going on with the Olympics. And right now, Americans are off to a decent start. They aren't the highest medal winner at this point, but they are doing pretty well up to this point. All right, let me see what I got here. Okay, now, I know what I wanted to do. Stand by for a second until I get this technical difficulty stuff worked out. I'm good for messing up stuff. Before I even get to that, going back to the opening ceremonies, controversy is all over the place concerning the French approach to the opening ceremonies. If you look at this picture here, on the bottom, you have Leonardo da Vinci's depiction of the Last Supper. Above that, you have the French presentation of the Last Supper in the opening ceremonies. And if you look, it's all full of drag queens. The question was asked to the French program director of the opening ceremonies, and he said, the French are a people of expression. They have freedom to do and express ideas and love who they want to love, and it is represented in this particular picture. A lot of people are taking offense to it, especially the Christians, about why this particular picture had to be infused inside the opening ceremonies. Again, the program director defended it. Freedom of expression. And if you want to wrinkle a few feathers and turn some people against you, they did a great job of that. But as far as the freedom of expression, I can't go against that. But my question is, why would you go to the extent of introducing something controversial like this when you know millions of kids around the country are watching those images? It wasn't just the Last Supper. It was the other thing about people dating each other, and they had this menage a trois kind of idea when they closed the door on that, and it's just freedom, and they're confusing a lot of kids. I know a few kids who asked the question of some people that they know about, what's all this supposed to mean? So if you introducing this to kids at a young age, and what are they supposed to think? You're confusing a whole lot of people with these images that you put forth. I'm not getting into the religion thing, as there's a no-win situation there, but I can see how some religions would be offended by these images. But at the same time, my concern is with how is it affecting the children? You can't say, well, I'm just going to leave that alone. I think that the children are being greatly affected by such images, and I don't know if that should have been included inside the opening ceremonies. But one thing that they did do that I liked about the opening ceremonies, they did include images of women in the statues, because the women generally historically have been put on the back burner, and to champion the successes of French women by showing those statues and talking about the accomplishments they made over the years. I thought that was a good thing. But the best thing that I liked about the Olympics opening ceremony was when they were doing the lighting of the ceremony. And if you see this guy here in the wheelchair, his name is Charles Cost, and he is a 1948 team cyclist champion from the 48 London Olympics. He is 100 years old, and he is the oldest living French gold medalist or French medalist, period. And I thought that was great that he can attend this ceremony. And it just so happened, his whole life has gone in full circles with these Olympics. In 1924, they hosted the Olympics in Paris, and now they come back 100 years later, and it just so happened he was born just a couple months before the 1924 Olympics. So what you're looking at there is history. And also in the background, to the right there, that is Marie-José Perec. She was that 400-meter Olympic champion, but they run her out of Australia in 2000 because Australia had a runner that they wanted to win the Olympics, and they wanted to make sure Perec was out of the way. Nobody ever said anything other than when she departed. Nobody ever said anything about that. But when you go to these Olympics, a lot of times it means a lot to the host country, and they will go to whatever levels that they think they have to for their athletes to win. And in this case right here, something went down with the Australian country trying to promote their 400 runner and get Perec out of the way. I don't recall if that runner won the Olympics or not, but I do remember Perec ran out of Australia in a mighty hurry, and it was controversial at best. So, speaking of what we were talking about concerning that Last Supper, we're going to show you that Last Supper again. And like I say, it's a depiction of Leonardo da Vinci Last Supper. You have the original depiction below and the drag queen from the Olympics opening ceremonies on the top. Caused a lot of controversy. Now, on the same subject of the alphabet community, I just call it that, you have this guy, Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy was the first round draft choice of the Seattle Seahawks this year. And like all the other draft choices in NFL players, all in NFL, they're in training camp right now getting ready for the season. Well, it came out the other day, some very embarrassing information. Whether it's true or not is something he's going to have to deal with. Murphy has been accused by this adult. I want to say, I won't call the name just in case I mess it up, but this person here is accusing, name is Head Honcho, and he's a transgender on OnlyFans, saying that Murphy requested some services and didn't pay for them. So they call themselves, the accuser calls himself, outing Mr. Murphy about his particular activities by showing so-called communication between them, asking for sexual favors. Well, Murphy had his agent come out and respond to those allegations. He's saying this is not the first athlete Huncho has gone after, and this is an attempt at extortion by Huncho. And because of that, authorities are involved, and they're going to get to the bottom of it. But it's important for Murphy to get this settled and get the right information out there, because you don't want to go into a new situation with your teammates because they see what's going on, they hear what's going on, and that's a bad way to start an NFL career or a bad way to start any kind of introduction to any kind of team under those circumstances. You do what you want behind the scenes, but you can't bring that into a team activity. That has to be separate from what's going on with your teams. And he needs to hurry up and resolve that because it's not a good look for him. It's not a good look for the Seahawks. And it's something he needs to get resolved. But again, his agent came out and disputed the claims of Head Honcho, and an investigation is underway as to the claims of what's actually taking place here. All right. So now, moving over to football. As I said, the training camps are in full bloom right now. You see the New York Giants are on the HBO training camp, and they're doing a special edition of the program. Normally it's only like 4 or 5 episodes, but they're doing a little bit longer this year because this is the 100 year of New York Giants football team. They are one of the oldest members of the league, and this kind of justifies this attention that they're getting is justification for being one of the league's oldest members. And they're going from pre-draft and into free agency and the draft itself. Then it's going to roll right on into training camp as we get ready for the season to begin. So far, it's been a pretty good program. You know, you can get some revelations about how some of these GMs and teams think as they try to build their team moving forward. And a lot of times, the big question is a quarterback. In the Giants' case, is what to do about Daniel Jones. Is he going to be our quarterback of the future, or is he not? Well, that was the question that they had. Another question they had, should they keep Saquon Barkley? Well, they ended up losing Barkley, and I don't know who they're going to get to take his place, but there are a couple nice signings that they had. They picked up Byron Burns. They picked up Runyon on the line. The Giants have improved themselves, and it's going to come down to what kind of quarterback play can they get. They got Drew Lock as a backup quarterback out of Seattle. They decided not to go with a new quarterback. Instead, they picked up Neighbors out of LSU, that wide receiver. So they're putting pieces around themselves to be competitive. But what I'm speaking of now is the quarterbacks in the NFL. Everybody that signs a contract now is getting record deals. The latest to get the record deal, Jordan Love. He just inked the deal, Mr. Love, where he got $75 million signing bonus. He's got 155 other guarantees, 155 million in other guarantees. And I think his overall contract is like 225 million or something like that. So he's basically getting 230 something guaranteed. No, let's see how much that is. 60. Yeah, 230 million in guarantees, because you get your bonus and you get your other guarantees, and then the salary is going to be minuscule. But when you get all your money up front, what difference does it make? And if he keep playing like he did in the playoffs last year against the Cowboys, then it's going to be much bigger paydays down the line for Mr. Jordan. So the question is, what is Mahomes going to be worth when it's time to re-sign him to a new deal? Every quarterback behind them, they ain't done a whole lot. They seem to be getting paid. So we can justify Mahomes getting paid for his 3 Super Bowl championships, and he's always knocking on the door for others. So he's justified, but these other guys, not so much. And when I say that, it puts me in the mind of LaShawn McCoy. He'd come out and complaining about why the quarterback's getting so much money when the other players are not. If you're familiar with what's going on with the league, they are reducing the value of the running back, saying that the running back shouldn't get so much money, but yet you dumping it all on the quarterback. So McCoy came out and used Trevor Lawrence for Jacksonville as an example. He said, how is a guy like Lawrence able to set the market when he hadn't done anything? Well, that's a good question. A lot of people are questioning whether Lawrence is the guy to truly lead the Jaguars. Well, by signing Lawrence, they have hitched their boat to his wagon. And where he pulls it is where they're going to go, at least for the next 3 years. So that's just one of the things that's been taking place around here in Jacksonville. They re-signed Lawrence. They got the stadium deal approved. So things are going to be happening pretty quick around here in Jacksonville. But McCoy believes that running back should get more money than what people are looking at them as having. And I agree with that. But I won't say that Lawrence don't deserve his money or love, but our lasting images of love in the playoffs, it looks like to me he deserves that money. But every time a new quarterback signs, they're going to get big money. I think the next quarterback is the guy from LA Chargers. I almost said San Diego Chargers. And by the way, to me, they always be the San Diego Chargers. It's like Washington will always be the Redskins. The Chargers, I can't, the guy from Oregon, I forget his name right now, but he's going to be up next. Then it's going to go around in a circle again. It's going to come back to Mahomes. And I think he signed for 500 or something million last time. He might just be the first billionaire quarterback to play in any professional sport. And I say that because the way that football is regulating the contact out of the sport, well, you can't hardly breathe on the quarterback. long as his arm's good, and his arm should be good to 40, 45. We see that with Tom Brady, then he can make just as much money as they're willing to pay him. It's just a wait and see kind of thing. But Jordan Love, again, he just signed that contract and he's all good to go. Now, going back to LaShawn McCoy's point, he talked about other players should get paid. Well, the receivers are starting to get paid too. I think Jordan Jefferson for the Vikings, I think he signed a 4-year, $140 million deal. Well, that's just the beginning of it, because up next, you have Jamar Chase. He is not happy at all with what's taking place in Cincinnati. It's clear that he wants a new deal, and I don't think he's going to sit out, but he's going to be the next receiver to take home a big bag of money. And the way he's played, I think he deserves to get paid, just like Jordan Jefferson deserved to get paid. So not only are the quarterbacks going to be getting paid now, it's quarterback and receiver. Anybody else, well, you get whatever you can get. But still, it's going to come down to, can you run the football in the wintertime? You can't sit back there and just throw bullets all day in that cold air, because you're going to come up into an environment where the wind is going to be whipping up so bad and you can't throw the football. You're going to have to run. So just like everything else goes in circles, it's going to come back to the running back. And if you don't have a running back that can stick it in there, or a fullback that can lead him up in there, it's going to bite you in the end. You take a look at what the Ravens did. Yeah, they got the running quarterback with Lamar Jackson, but how long can the quarterback run? Eventually, he's going to slow down, and you can't hit your whole wagon to that. They went out and got Derrick Henry. So Derrick Henry's sticking it up in there. Baltimore is setting themselves up to be a very hard out. But it still comes down to, can you stop Baltimore from running the football? If you can't stop the running backs from running the football, the Ravens, then you're going to have an awful hard time beating them. I don't care who you are, especially if the quarterback's able to get outside. And it's easier for him to get outside if you can be able to run it up the middle with those backs. Only question I got about Henry, I've been following Henry since his high school days, and I know all the tons of carries he got in high school, all the tons of carries he's got in college, and he's carried the ball an awful lot in the NFL. Question is, when will he time out? What do I mean by timing out? Well, if you remember Sean Alexander from the Seahawks, man was running the air out of football. And all of a sudden he went to camp, and suddenly he couldn't do it no more. He just didn't have any more carries left in his legs. Will that happen to Henry? I hope it doesn't. But if you think about all the carries he's had, it is not out of the question to think that Henry couldn't run out of gas at any moment. He's been in the league now, 7, 8 years now? All those carries, all that pounding in Alabama, all that pounding at Yulee, that man got some carries on him, man, and he can fall apart at any time. I hope he doesn't, but keep an eye on it. If he just start to get all these nagging injuries, and one day he just might roll out of bed and he can't do it no more. So it's happened before, so keep that in your mind. I don't want to see it happen, but it might. But again, recap, Jordan Love signed that big contract. He's happy. Waiting to see what's going to happen with Jamar Chase with his contract. Hopefully he gets what he wants. But you know these guys don't really give a damn if they win or not anymore. It's all about how much money can they get. And if they're able to get all the money, then get the money. I got no problem with that at all. Because once you quit playing, that money dries up. Hopefully you haven't spent it all. All right. So again, this is Sports for Real with Coach All. Just recap a little bit. I talked about the opening ceremonies and what took place with the opening ceremony from where I saw it, and the controversies that it's created. Joel Embiid, he's not very popular with the French populace right now, because he could have been playing for France or he could have been playing for Cameroon, but he wanted to give himself the best chance to win a medal by playing with the United States. That's kind of what you see in the high school sports these days. These guys are linking up with players that they know from these camps, and they're making these all-star teams. So high school football is not like it used to be. It's who has the biggest collection of recruits. And I don't know how that's a different subject, but when you start putting this together, it's letting you know that academics really don't mean a thing. So, but you better have or know something in the long run that's going to cost you. But Simone Biles is going back to the Olympics. She has a chance to get some more gold medals. She's going to face some stiff competition from Rebecca Andrade. And my question is, why don't you have the dropsies now? Why all of a sudden you had the dropsies a couple of years ago? Like I said before, I never bought that. I think she was in love and she was distracted and she wasn't focused enough to go win gold in 21. So that's my take on that. Last Supper, controversial subject, and a lot of people aren't happy about it, especially Christian religious groups. Um, Makes you question why you put certain things into certain programs at certain times, because again, you have a whole bunch of kids watching these things. And what is it that you really want the kids to know? All right. Byron Murphy, he's got problems with this person accusing him of soliciting a transgender for sex. And he has to fight that off. Otherwise, he don't look too good right now in front of his teammates. So that's a problem he's gotta resolve. Spoken out against it, say he's gonna fight that. It's not true. But again, the truth will come out eventually. Hopefully, it works out for him. Jordan Love, again, signed that monster contract, $75 million signing bonus, and $155 million in the other guarantees. I got one question about that though. If you sign a $75 million signing bonus, you play 1 year and say, man, I don't want to play no more. Walk away. How much money does he get to keep? 75 million is enough to last a couple of lifetimes. It's a question. Charles Cost, the oldest living French medalist, 1948 team cyclist champion. From the 48 London Olympics, he turned 100 years old. He was born a couple months before the 1924 Paris Olympics, and he lived 100 years to make it to the 2024 Paris Olympics. So I thought that was a great thing for the French to put out there. And what that is. And finally, I don't know what this last picture is. All right. I'm going to stop sharing here because I don't know what this last picture is. All right. Again, high school football camps open up tomorrow. Going to be great. You know, they hold your hand. I think they have to go in shorts for a whole week. You know, they don't have tour days like what we used to have. You can have two practices, but only one can be on the field. So just like everything else, they watered it down and they're making all these kids soft. They don't want to play no football. They just want to get out there and look pretty. But all that kicks off tomorrow. And then you have next week after that, and the teachers start coming back to most schools. Then after that, August 12th, a lot of schools will be open. So that let you know it's time for some football. The camps opening up in NFL, college will be right behind that. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about. I meant to tell you about the Big Ten. They had that Big Ten opening ceremonies the other day. And with the Big Ten, they now at 18 teams. So what they did over 3 days, they had the coaches come up and they talk about their fortunes or what they expect to see in the upcoming season. And if you look back here at if you look at the graphic that I have here, it's the 24-25 two-play opponent system that the Big Ten came up with. So you got all these different teams coming in. Pretty much what they did was they had USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon, those 4 Western teams, to come into the Big Ten, who already had 14 teams. So now you have 18. So you have these inner rivalries inside the conference. You know, it seems like everybody in the Big Ten, they playing for something. Old Oak and Bucket, Florida Rosedale, Pig, and all this kind of stuff that they got going on in the Big Ten. Now you introduce these 4 Western teams. So you have to try to find a way to keep all these things together. And if you look at this what you have here, you take Ohio State, they have what they call two-play opponents. You're going to play 2 teams home and home. So instead of switching every year, Ohio State's going to play Illinois, say at home this year, and they'll play them on the road next year. The same thing with Northwestern. And then you have what you call a permanent opponent, which is they call protected, where you're going to keep. So, you know, Ohio State's always going to play Michigan. You have Michigan is always going to play Michigan State. So protecting all these rivals, USC is going to play UCLA. Let's see what Nebraska has. They're always going to play Iowa. That's a big rival of theirs. Um, I'm not sure what Purdue has here, but I think Indiana and Illinois are they should be protected because those are long time rivalries, and they're going to have a 2 year with Northwestern, and then of course that's going to rotate as time moves on. Um, as they were doing this Big Ten Media Days, I just happened to be looking down a lot of the schedules, and it's like murderer's row. It's going to get very brutal in the Big Ten, and not only in the Big Ten, it's going to get brutal in the SEC because they're facing a similar type of thing with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the league. And what makes this all interesting is you got bullies from certain blocks. USC is a bully in the Pac-12. Michigan and Ohio State bullies in the Big Ten. I can't recall a time where Ohio State finished worse than fourth in the Big Ten race, even with their worst teams. So when they've been up at the top lately with Urban Meyer and now with Ryan Day, they hadn't finished no worse than second. The third is a far cry, but definitely no lower than that. But now that you bring it in Oregon and Washington, they're very capable of knocking you off. Now they are causing immediate problems. It's already bad enough if you Ohio State, if a coach loses the game to Michigan, they want to run him out of town. They were talking about firing Ryan Day as much games as he's won in his 6 years. You can't fire a guy like that and make it make sense. But that's the way these people think. But let's just say Ohio State, they get a brutal schedule, kind of like what Purdue has. They got the worst schedule, I think, in the Big Ten. They got Washington, they got Oregon, they got I think it's USC. Then they got Notre Dame thrown in there. Purdue's got a problem. But let's just look at Michigan. I think Michigan, if it's not Purdue, they might have the worst schedule. They open up early in the season with Texas. Then you got Oregon on there. And then you also have, if I'm not mistaken, you still got Penn State. And then you also have Ohio State at the end of the year. So Shamar Moore, I think that's his name. He is the not Shamar Moore. What's that guy name? The head coach. It might be Moore, but I might be messing his name up. But they're losing a lot of people coming back from last year. So it's already going to be tough because you're targeted. And now with the schedule that you have, this guy here in his first year can lose 4 or 5 games. May not happen, but they're going to lose probably about 3 of them. Texas is a big problem to open the season up with. I don't care what you say, because if Texas can't do nothing else, they can run. And that's why they're going to be an immediate problem for the SEC. And the point I'm getting to here is this. If you're used to winning over here, and this team is used to winning over there, and you put everybody into the same pot, everybody's not going to win like they used to win. So what I think is going to happen in the next couple of years, you're going to see some of these teams that ventured into these conferences, they're going to go back to where they came from. Because I think the fans, if these teams get in here and not doing as good as they think they should do, because you just take, for instance, let's just say if you take an SEC team and move them out to the Big 12, they already have a heightened sense that they're the best. But if your team go out there and if you're from the best conference, you should be able to dominate another conference, right? Well, if that doesn't happen, then the fans are going to be upset. You were doing well where you were. Why do you have to move? So what I'm saying to you is this. When these teams like a USC or Washington go to this Big Ten and they don't win like the fans think they win, they've got to start clamoring for those teams to come back home, because the fans will rather have you be 12-0 in a weaker conference and say we're the best, as opposed to going through murderer's row, which what you're going to have to do now in the Big Ten and the SEC, murderer's row to win these conference championships and get blood on your hands. And then when you lose a national champion, you say, well, we beat each other up during the regular season, which is a bunch of garbage. Because if you're out there playing football, you can go out there against a team that's 0-38, but that can be the hardest hitting team you ever play. Just because you from a big university doesn't mean you got the best hitters out there. You just got more talent than they got, and that's the reason why you win. But any playing football can end up being carnage to the players out there playing. So it doesn't matter who you're playing against. You better protect yourself on every play. But I just think in the end, the biggest winner out of all this conference realignment is going to be the team that lost the most, the conference that lost the most, and that is the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is still a conference, but they're down to two teams. They have Oregon State and they have Washington State, and those are the two teams that nobody wanted. But here's the beauty of it all. They control all the conference coffers now. Any money that these two teams make, if they go out into a high-paying bowl, it don't have to be split between two teams. So going back to what I was saying, if you got a team like Michigan, not Michigan, but let's say I'll get to that in a second. But just say a team like UCLA. They come over to the Big Ten, they don't do so well. They might give a call to the Pac-12 and say, I want to come back home. But the two teams that I think that are going to do that first are going to be Stanford and California, because they're going all the way to the ACC. They're going to get tired of doing all that cross-country traveling, and they're going to call up Oregon State and Washington State and say, can we come back home? And I think that's going to happen. And the other team that I think is going to happen, Texas A&M. Why do I say Texas A&M? Big budget, right? They can go to that small conference up there and then be big dog. And it also gets them away from Texas. They left the Big 12 to get away from Texas because they were overshadowing them. They had that Longhorn network and all the different ties and connections that Texas have. They were overshadowing the Aggies. So they want to get away from them. So they did it for a while. But lo and behold, who's in the SEC now? Texas. They just can't get rid of them. But if you got all these heavyweights coming into this conference, you can't tell me that it wouldn't be an interesting thing for Texas A&M to do is go join that Pac-12 and rebuild that conference, because they're going to take other people with them. If Texas A&M goes, they're going to take Arkansas with them. And what you're going to have is a truly national conference model. You already see it with the ACC. The Big 12 is doing the same thing. So can you envision Texas A&M getting away from Texas again? Seems like wherever they go, they're going to follow them. You can't escape them. And by the way, they're back on the schedule this year. They ain't played in about 10 years. It's a great rivalry. Been some nice upsets, but of course, Texas, they gotten the better of that over the years. But I think Texas A&M love to see Texas back on the football field, but as conference members, they want to get away from them again. So if this thing doesn't go well, this with Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC, and with this NIL thing going and being able to pay players and get pretty much who you want now, it's just a matter of who outbids who now. And if they do all that and still can't win, I see Texas A&M calling the two-team Pac-12 and possibly going up there. You say if you take those two teams, you have Texas A&M, Stanford, California, and they'll get a couple other teams to come up with about 8 teams, then they're going to survive. And I think that's what's going to happen. All these teams are going to see, man, we can't, it's nice money and all, but we can't survive getting beat up like this and then travel, and the morale is low, the fans are giving it to you, then the boosters are going to stop contributing. It's not worth it, man. And the fact that you got to pay the players now on top of that, it makes people question whether programs like Miami, who has their academic stuff going together, their endowment, they really don't need football anymore. So keep our own teams doing some strange things in these next 2 years. But you won't see that happen until we see what happens after this football year. It's exciting for guys like me because you see Texas and Oklahoma, they are an immediate problem to the SEC. A lot of teams, they hide behind, well, we're in the SEC, the best conference. Yeah, you might be. But if you look at the history of the SEC, it's the same 2 or 3 teams that's been running that for years. Alabama has been the bell cow. They'll go down for a few years, get on probation or whatever, then they'll bounce back with a guy like Saban. Georgia came back. They'll eventually start going back down, then somebody else will step up. You got a team like Florida, they got to play people now. They wouldn't schedule games that were risk for them. So now that you got a Texas and Oklahoma coming in, you got to play them. And say you can't beat them, you can beat them, but you got to play them. Now you got to play them. They're going to play Miami this year. and I think they have Texas on the schedule. Florida's got a problem. They're gonna have to change the way they think down there real quick, or this could turn out to be maybe Florida will join Texas A&M and go out to the Pac-12. We'll see. I doubt it, but we'll see. But it's just me ranting. I'm telling you about what I've been seeing in college sports and the Olympics. So I'm looking forward to the NFL getting started again. Should be an interesting year there, but definitely it's going to be a great year in college football, especially with the Big Ten and the SEC. It's must-see football. But in the meantime, high school camps open tomorrow. I'm sitting on the sidelines because I don't like the way things are going. You know, it all comes down to who has the biggest budget. And with this NIL thing, you're going to see private schools dominate down here. They're already dominating, but when they can start throwing money around to these NIL deals, public schools can't match that. And then when you add to the fact that some of the public dollars are going to these charter and private schools, public schools is they're on the watch, man. They're on the decline because the government has made it that way. So they're gonna have to fight to survive. But eventually, just like everybody's running over there now trying to get these public and private schools, once you find out what they really like, they're gonna regain their strength, just like the Pac-12 is gonna regain their strength when it comes to sports. Same thing with these public schools. But meantime, if you're a player and somebody offers you some money in the NIL, you'd be a fool not to take it. But what kind of money are you willing to take? Or better yet, what kind of money are you willing to turn down? That's the question. So, just my thoughts. Until next time, this has been Sports for Real. All right.